Hello artists, welcome to your Peacock painting class. In front of you, you should have your Peacock sketch canvas, a paper towel with your large brush and your small brush, a cup of water, black, white, vanilla, orange, blue, and green paint. If you do not have all those materials, you're welcome to push pause on the video and continue whenever you are ready. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to wash and dry both of our brushes by stirring our brushes in our cup and slowly just kind of patting them gently on our paper towel. We never want too much water on our brush. There you go. We are going to start off with our white paint first. Go ahead and grab your small brush, so not your big one, but your small brush, and dip your small brush in your white paint. So small brush white paint, and we're going to go in there inside each circle and paint it white. You do not want to get rid of the pencil lines because we want to find them later, but you're going to do your best to kind of paint inside each circle. And I'm just kind of moving my brush in a round kind of movement. Go back for more. There's some up here. So all those circles inside each of those feathers, you want it to be white. And again, do your best not to get rid of your pencil line. Nice white circle. And if you feel like you still can see some of the canvas poking through, once you're done, you can give your white paint a minute to dry and then go back and touch it up with a second coat. So if you feel like the first coat doesn't look clean, you can still see a lot of the canvas underneath it. You're welcome to go back and give it a second coat. Also be sure your paint is flat. You don't want any bumps with your white paint. You want to go over it and smooth it out. All right. The next area we are going to paint white is in the eye area where you see this loop. So I'm going to paint this white. And if you're still working on the circles, continue to work on the circles. It has a C shape, so I'm just kind of curving my small brush around. Small brush white paint inside this section right here. Again, do your best not to get rid of the outline, like so. The next area we are going to paint white is around these circles, kind of at the tail of your peacock. And if you are not to this point yet, you are welcome to push pause on the video and continue on whenever you are ready. So I'm going to use my small brush, and the third area I'm going to paint white is around these circles. So I'm going to, again, do my best not to get rid of any of the pencil line. Make sure it looks nice and smooth, no bumps. Like so. So the dots, around the dots, and then this kind of C shape right here in our peacock's eye. You do not have to clean your brush, but the next thing we're going to do is we are going to take our small brush and our vanilla paint, and we're going to go around our feathers. So I didn't even wash my small brush. I just dip it into the vanilla paint, and I'm gonna make an outline around my feathers because our background is gonna be this vanilla color. I just wanna make sure I know where to stop with my vanilla. Sorry about that. I'm just going on the outside of this, almost like football shape or eye shape, because our next step will be painting all of that background color with this really pretty vanilla. Be sure your lines are nice and long, nice and smooth. Get rid of any bumps, just kind of go over it and smooth it out. If you get some pencil smear inside of your peacock shape, you can go ahead and just kind of sweep it out and just kind of move the pencil lead so it slowly disappears. So if you feel like you got a pencil smear, just kind of sweep it out, get it nice and smooth. So far, so good. Perfect. Just going around each shape. Perfect. Once I am done, I am going to go around my peacock with the same idea. So I've outlined all the feathers. Then I'm going to start here inside of the neck. Just kind of go around the tail a little bit. Get it nice and clean. It's almost like a paisley shape. Then once I am done with my outlining, I can jump in there and use my bigger brush. Make sure all that background space is nice and vanilla color. So here, go around the beak, above the beak, go around these little areas up here, between each one. So I've kind of created a bubble around the feathers and around the peacock. And once you are done, you can wash and dry your small brush and jump to your bigger brush and paint all that space in the background. And even your four sides. You do want to paint your four sides this vanilla color. Now I'm just kind of painting up and down motion. I would definitely recommend 2 coats, which means you paint it once, let it dry, and then go back over it with a second coat. Also go over your outline too, so you can kind of break it up and make sure it works together with the rest of the background. So I'm going over my outline just a little bit. There's that pencil lead. I'm gonna kind of slowly sweep it out. You clean your brush too. Really doesn't matter where you start on this. Just be very careful not to get any of this vanilla color on your feathers or on your peacock, just in general. If you need to jump to your smaller brush for little small areas, you can jump to your smaller brush. Get rid of any bumps. And then I am going to start on my 4 sides, just kind of painting side to side on the bottom part. Up and down on the left and the right. Getting them nice and smooth, no bumps with your vanilla paint. So on all 4 sides to be painted this vanilla color. And again, I would definitely recommend going back and giving your canvas a second coat of vanilla. It's just going to give it a little bit of a better coverage. It'll make it look more solid, so you won't see the white canvas peeking through behind it. There we go. And then I'm going to wash and dry my big brush. And again, if you are not done with the vanilla part right now, you are welcome to push pause on the video. I'm going to go ahead and wash both my brushes just to double check, make sure I have no vanilla on there. My next step is really easy. All it is, it's an orange beak. So I'm going to wash and dry my small brush. I'm going to bring it to a point so it's nice and pointy. So I'm going to twist it and bring it to a nice point. Dip it into that orange. Then I'm going to go inside there and fill in my orange. It's okay if you can still see the pencil line. We'll go in there later and outline in black. And again, I would definitely recommend 2 coats of orange. Paint it orange once, let it dry, and then go back over it with a nice second coat. Be sure it's nice and smooth as well. No bumps. Perfect. Then once you're done, you can, oh, I just used my small brush. You can wash and dry your small brush. Next step is super easy. All we're going to be doing is using the bright green paint and going around those white circles in the feathers. So we're going to be using our light green paint and kind of filling out this outer area. If you want, if it makes it easier for you, you can use your small brush and kind of outline. And I am going to be going over my pencil lines. Be sure that your vanilla paint is dry. You don't want it to be shiny and wet, because if you have 2 shiny wet colors that touch, they are going to mix together. So be sure the vanilla color is dry before you get anywhere close to it. So I'm going to use my small brush and go around a circle. Cover up my pencil a little bit over here too. Be sure the white's dry too. And then you can use your small brush or your big brush to kind of fill in that space. And you're going to be using the same idea in all of the feathers. So small brush. Be careful if your vanilla is still wet. Go on top of your pencil lines. And then with around here, you go on top of my pencil line as well. And then you can use your small or your big brush to fill in. And make sure it looks nice and smooth, nice long lines. Slowly fill out that space. And again, I recommended 2 coats for this bright green as well. You want it to be nice and bright. When you go over your green with a second coat, you won't be able to see those sweeps with your brush as much because they'll look a little bit more solid. And if you are not done, whenever I'm done with your the lime green, you're welcome to push pause on the video. one more. After I'm done with my last one, I am not going to clean my brush because I am going to use the green for going around my feathers and to the left, and I'll show you how in just a moment. I'm going to make some fun lines to kind of fill up some of that space around the feathers, and then to the left. Actually, see this for just a moment. All right, once you are done with going around the circles and filling up the feather space, you don't have to clean your brush. You're just going to go in there and just kind of add some sweeps, kind of following the direction of the feathers. So I'm just going to add one here, very random, and you can add as many as you want. Later on, we'll be going in there with blue and white. So leave space for those, but I'm just kind of following the shapes just on the outside of some of these feathers and kind of filling up that space a little bit more. And I'm just kind of sweeping too, just kind of flicking at the end of my brush stroke so I get those thinner ends around the shapes. Be doing some up here too. Don't do any down here because that's where the legs are going to be. So I just kind of went in there slowly and added these sweeps. And also remember, the harder you push on your brush, the thicker the lines become. And be sure that your vanilla paint is nice and dry. One more thing. With my green, I am going to go in there and just kind of make some lines going up. Some flicks. Kind of following this shape. You don't want to really do any down here where the legs are going to be. But you want to slowly kind of fill in that space on the left as well. Even make some over here. Just a nice little filler. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's make it an even 8 lines. Just kind of sweeping up and diagonal to fill up that space. Once you're done, you can wash and dry your brush. Once you're done, wash and dry your brush. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on our light blue, And since we don't have any light blue on our, with our colors, all I'm going to do is grab a little bit of white, a little bit of blue, just kind of move them around. If you want to get a plate, you can, but you can truly just have white and blue on your small brush. So I washed and dried my small brush, and then I dipped it a little bit into the white and then back over to the blue. And I'm going to go inside these circles and make a nice light blue. I think I'm going to go a little bit lighter. So if you wanted a plate, you can use a plate to mix this. But all it is a little bit of blue and a little bit of white. I'm going to go into these circles right here. Just a little bit lighter. It's a nice light blue in these little circles. If you want them to be even lighter, you can add more white. A nice light blue. There is also some light blue in these dots up here. You're going to fill them in. So that same light blue you have on your small brush. 1, 2, and 3. And again, if you want them to be lighter, you can go in there and add a little bit more white. Don't clean off your brush just yet. You are going to use that white and blue on your brush, small brush, and you're going to kind of do the same thing that you did with your lines with your light green. Be sure you don't have big clumps of light blue on your small brush. You can even just kind of wipe it off on your paper towel a little bit. And if you are not to this point, you can pause the video. But I'm going to come up here on the left side. I'm just going to sweep some lighter blue, kind of in the same way I did with my green on the left side. Maybe just make one either underneath or below. Fill this space a little bit more too. And then I'll also go in there. Be very careful if you have wet green paint. You don't really want them to mix. So if you wanted to give it some time to dry before you went in there with your white and your blue mix. It's kind of following that same pattern. Slowly filling up that space. Going down here. You can add as many of these as you want, or as little of these as you want, but be sure you're slowly filling up that space. Perfect. Looks great. And we're still going to be using our dark blue and our white later to go in there, so don't feel like it has to be completely full. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to wash and dry our small brush. Wash and dry. And I'm going to bring my small brush to a point again. And I'm going to use my dark blue. And inside each of these circles, I'm going to make a smaller dark blue circle. Later on, I'll be adding white inside of the dark blue circles. But as of right now, I'm just going to make a circle shape and fill in. So be sure you have that white outer area. Pretty much like a C shape, backward C shape, and fill in. Looks like an eye. And once we're done, we'll be going in there and making some dark blue sweeps around the feathers and to the left of our peacock. These ones here on the side, you can just make just like a little dot. Be sure you can still see the white around them. Pushing down, little mini circles. And then without cleaning my small brush, I'll go in there. Be sure you've given a minute or two for these other colors to dry. You can go in there. I'm just going to add some. I add a little bit of water to my brush, tap it on the paper towel. Feels like my paint is getting kind of dry on my brush. And just kind of following that same pattern of sweeps up into the diagonal to the left. And I'll go in there and add some dark blue. Following the shape of the peacock. Add some water and tap it on my towel about 10 times. And go in there with more dark blue. I'm doing my best to not get any in that kind of limey green feather shape. It's okay if they overlap just a little bit. Just be sure that your light blue and your green are pretty dry. You don't want them to mix too much. And later on, we'll be going there with white as well. So if there's an area you don't like, you can put a white sweep over it just to kind of make it disappear pretty much. And before you wash your small brush with your dark blue paint, you want to go over your pencil line with dark blue, because the body and around the face will also be dark blue. So all I'm going to do is take my small brush, and if you're still working on your sweeps, no problem. I'm going to use my small brush to outline over my pencil line with my dark blue paint. Nice long smooth line so it doesn't look choppy. Keep it going until it's out of paint. And if you want, if it makes it easier, you can go around this eye shape, so kind of like at the letter U. I'm going to go underneath here. I'm going to go around the C shape. Do not connect these two. You're going to go around it on the outside. Fill in that shape. There you go. I am going to continue to use my small brush to kind of get into those areas once I'm done with my outline, because the body and the face will be mostly blue. So now I can kind of go in there and fill up that space a little bit more. And then the rest of the body will also be dark blue. You can use your bigger brush or your smaller brush in the smaller areas. But be sure the blue looks nice and clean. You might want to do 2 coats. I'm just using my smaller brush to get into those smaller areas. And I would recommend 2 coats again. So paint it once, let it dry, and go in there and give it a second coat of blue. I'm just kind of painting with a little bit of a curve. Curving around here, making sure all of the space is filled in. Be careful and be sure you're staying inside the outline. And again, definitely 2 coats recommended for this blue. There you go. And then once you are done, you can wash and dry. If you feel like some of your lines got a little bit messy, you can always drag your small brush with your dark blue. Get that shape back a little bit better. There you go. And wash and dry. Okay. We are going to work on black next. Be sure that your brushes are nicely washed and dried. I'm going to start off with my small brush and my black paint. I'll wash it and bring it to a nice point by twisting it around. I would dip a little bit of black into my small brush, and I'm going to go in there and paint the eye black. If your blue is still wet, you can give it a couple minutes to dry. then go in there with your black paint. Like so. And then with my small brush and my black paint, I'm also going to go in there and add some sweeps. This is optional. If you feel like this is going to make it too dark, you don't have to. And I do just a little bit less black because I do like to keep mine a little bit more bright. So I only did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those black lines going up and diagonal. Then you can add some in here too. It's okay if it overlaps with your other colors. Just be sure they're not too wet and mixing together too much. Darken that one just a little bit. All right. There's also those 3 lines up here. So I do want to wash and dry and bring my small brush to a nice point. And remember, the harder you push, the thicker the lines become. So you just want to be on the tippy toes of your small brush. Be very careful not to touch anything that's wet. So 3 lines. And don't forget your 2 legs for your peacock. So down here, I'm going to make 1 leg, 2 legs. So just barely pushing on my brush. My brush got a little bit fuzzy, huh? I'm going to go over it. 1 leg. I come out and to the right just a little bit. 2 legs. Perfect. I come up here one more time. My brush kind of got a little bit fuzzy up here. Perfect. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my small brush and my black paint. Be sure this dark blue is dry, but all you're going to do is make a small dot with your black paint wherever you can see the center of your dark blue paint. So I'm just going to go in there, make little dots. It's going to put pushing up and down on my brush. It's like a stamp, just a tiny little dot wherever I can see the center of my dark blue. Like so. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to outline all of my feathers. I do want to make sure I don't see any of the pencil. So be sure whenever you're outlining, you're making nice, long, smooth lines. Remember, the harder you push, the thicker the lines become. So you just want to barely be pushing on your brush. You want to go over your pencil lines so that you don't see them anymore. And you can always get your brush wet, pat it on your paper towel 7 or 8 times, and then add black and nice long smooth lines from one end to the next. You don't have to dip your brush in the water and pat it and twist it every time, but if you feel like it's getting dry, can you do that? I have an older brush, so mine is going to be needing a little bit more love sometimes. Each one is outlined. And then I will go around the white in just a moment as well. So once you're done going around your feathers, you are going to go around this white shape. Kind of clean it up just a little bit. And just be sure you're on the tippy toes. You're covering up that pencil line as well. I kind of do half and half. So I do half of this circle. And when you have a whole one, you do the other half. So nice. Kind of way to clean up that area. So half the circle, and then the other half. Go. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover up some more pencil lines. So I'm going to go around this area of the peacock, and I'm going to go around the actual shape of the peacock as well. So the tail, cover up these pencil lines. I'm also going to go around the blue pencil, the blue circle. Sorry about that. Clean up all of those pencil lines. And later on, if you feel like you got too much black in that area, you can go in there and kind of fill them up with white. I feel like I would probably go back and touch it up with some more white up here, so I have that white space peeking through. But I want to make sure my black paint is nice and dry before I do that. I'm going to outline around my peacock. So I'll start here at the neck area. Just going to drag my brush. Just going to keep it going. Can even start up here. And I am overlapping over my blue just a little bit too. Kind of coming out further. I just definitely want to cover up any pencil lines I see. There you go. Sorry, seeing some areas I want to clean up with this line work. All right. And I'm going to go around the face. Perfect. And then I want to go around the beak. Like so. And then I want to kind of go around the C shape with black very gently. Cover up those pencil lines too. clean up some of my black lines. Then I'll go in here and clean up my black lines. All right. So if you want to go back and kind of clean up any of your black lines, make sure you covered up all those pencil marks. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is white paint. So white paint, I'm going to wash and dry my small brush. Be sure it's really clean. You do not want to have any black on there. So I'm going to wash and maybe even hug my small brush and make sure all that black is off of there. I am going to add some white dots in several places. I'll use the back of my small brush for this one. So the back of my small brush, there's that perfect circle. I'm going to dip it right into the middle of each one of those. Also on the top left corner of my peacock's eye where the black is, I'm going to push down like so. So make sure that it's up here and to the top left. Once I'm done, I do want to make sure this area is dry, but I'll start on the left side with my white paint. I'm just going to sweep some white, and you can overlap here and there. Just be sure most of the paint over there is dry. I also want to go in here and add some white, some sweeps kind of following the direction of these lines. Perfect. Wipe off. I'm gonna go in there, kind of touch this up a little bit. My pencil line's still showing. One last thing I'm gonna do is I am gonna wait for this to dry a little bit more, but once it's a little bit more dry, I will go into these areas around the black circles, make sure it's nice and dry, and make sure that I see that white peeking underneath them. Mine's probably still a little bit too wet, but I'll kind of show you an example of what I'm talking about. But you do want to make sure that black is dry before you go in there and do this. So give it a couple minutes, make sure it's not too wet, and you can kind of clean up this area around your black lines. So again, mine is still wet, but I'm gonna kind of go in there so I can show you where you want to go in there. And otherwise, I do think your peacock is all done. Go back and make sure everything looks nice and clean. If you do go back to touch things up, just be aware that wet colors mix together. So if you want to let things dry before you go in there and build a color on top or next to it, you want to do another coat just to make things look a little cleaner. It's always a good idea too. But you're always welcome to kind of go back and touch things up and make sure that they look a little bit cleaner and nicer. Otherwise, you are all done with your peacock painting. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, artists, for joining us, and I hope you had a great time. Thank you so much. Young and Art.